Welcome back to another edition of the OG Gambling Syndicate. I'm Joe Giglio. We have our college football contest to get to this week. Josh Goodson from RTP Mortgage will be joining me shortly. As a reminder, you can win tickets to see the Carolina Hurricanes from my friend Josh Goodson over at RTP Mortgage. Corey Kirk won for August. We got Corey set up. He's on his way. He's ready to go. Glad that he found us. Just as a reminder, when you enter these contests, if I DM you or send out a tweet, it's important that you get in touch with me so I can hook you up and make sure that you guys can collect your prizes. The best way to find me is always to email me, gilio.joe@gmail.com. So if you have any questions about the contest, or if you think you did well, or you think you're owed a prize, drop me an email. That way I can find you guys. I'm going to show you the standings here before I bring Josh on from last week. So remember, this is going to be the whole month. And unfortunately, through DraftKings, we can't track the whole month, but I am fairly handy with a spreadsheet. So here we are. Chillum 3344 went 8-2 last week. Pirates ARG also went 8-2. Then you see two others besides me who went 7-3. AM Reap and Mike Rad. So off to a good start. Obviously, even if you have 6 or 5 wins, you're probably still in play. We have 3 more weeks in September to go. So Chillum, Pirates ARG, AM Reap, Mike Rad off to a good start. Kind of proud of that 7-3 that I posted last week. I wish it had translated. I wish those were the 10 games that I actually bet on last week. That might have been better for me. So again, though, I'll keep track of those standings. Again, when you enter, though, please make sure that you're communicating with me so I know what's going on. All right, the code to join this week, here it is, DraftKings.com pools/pick-pool/RZDS2ZJ. If you just want to go into your DraftKings Sportsbook app and add that last part, that's the code to join the private pool, RZDS2ZJ. If not, you can also find it on my Twitter account, which is Giglio_OG. All right, let's bring in our guy, Josh Goodson. Josh, first of all, how are we feeling after last week? You did make the journey to Charlotte to watch the Wolfpack lose 51-10 to Tennessee. So how are you feeling this week? I know it was a long off season for you.
Feeling great. I mean,
I know you had a big countdown. So I know you're a positive person. So I'm just checking in with you. I feel like you have the pulse of at least the positive portion of the Wolfpack fan base.
I feel like I get that as if I don't know. I like to think I'm a lot more realist than some. I think my positivity does come out of like watching the games and giving an opinion based on that. Like last year, I was like, I think we're going to beat Clemson the week after Duke, because it was like not just because I'm optimist. It's just like I just think sometimes everybody focuses so much on a single game as if you are going to play like that the rest of the year. You're going to play Tennessee the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Every play is a referendum. Everybody stinks. And I think I try to find some middle ground in that. And I'm okay. I mean, I was back home. I literally think the post-game show on the radio was done like as soon as I came in the driveway. I know a lot of people. I know that there's been not a lot of discourse, but there are some people who are like, I can't believe people leave games early, right? Like, who does that?
You left the Final Four early.
I booked a flight in Phoenix with 4 minutes to go, a red eye, because I was like, nah, man, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good. So,
well, there's some big numbers on the card this week.
I'm okay with state. You asked about state. I'm okay. Like, okay. I'm willing to think that I do think Tennessee is that team, and they look good. And I was more impressed with their defense than I thought I was going to be. They're really good, and we're not good. Thankfully, we play in the ACC, so we don't play a lot of Tennessees, and I think that can matter. So we'll see. Dave always turns it around. He hasn't really been. hit with needing to turn it around in week 3. So we'll see how that kind of goes. Usually it's like,
Let's start with the Wolfpack because this is a bigger number. There's a lot of big numbers this week. I want to go through a few of them
yep.
with you. Let's start with State. It's 21.5. They're at home. This is a noon start. Which fun fact or statistic would you like first?
Is it based on noon start or the
no, I have those, but not at the ready. I got two for you. Obviously, Dave Doran has more wins in NC State history than any other coach. He's got 82. His first one came against Louisiana Tech in 2013, 40-14 at home in a scorching hot noon start.
Yeah.
Louisiana Tech is a group of 5 team. Dave Doran is 21-0 against group of 5 teams not named East Carolina. So he's 23-2 if you include those results against the Pirates. So you and I have long talked about this. Dave Doran, when he plays against a team that he's better than or has more talent than, almost always wins. 23-2 is that number. Throw in the 11 games against 1AA teams, and he's 34-2 against the teams he's supposed to beat. Right?
Right.
That's not against the number or anything, but that's a pretty telling stat there. Yes. This number is big. I expect State to cover this number. Louisiana Tech, Sonny Cumbie now in his 3rd year. First 2 years, they've gone 3-9 each year. Louisiana Tech, unfortunately, like a lot of group of 5 schools, has become in that feeder class where if they get a good player, they pop, they're on their way to a different destination. So it's been a tough road to hoe for Louisiana Tech. This isn't the Skip Holtz, years where, or even a Sonny Dykes year. I believe he was there back in the day where they'd come in and throw it all over the yard and give you a real scare. I just like State to figure some things out this week.
Have you? I'm going to bring up a question, Joseph. Have you looked at La Tech's roster?
I don't think they have a Clemson transfer playing quarterback. They struggled they've had a weird schedule.
They've only played one game.
They've only played one game. It was August 31st. It was against a 1AA team.
Yeah.
So, and they struggled. I mean, they struggled like hell in that game against Nichols. So
I did a quick look. Their quarterback has not been to a Power 5 school, but I'm looking down the roster, and thankfully schools are like making it easier to see where guys come from. Iowa State, LSU. I mean, I think they're going to have some players. They're going to have some speed. They should. Hell, you're from that area. You should be able to pick up some of the guys that want to come back home and play, who aren't seeing the field. I'm with you. I like the over. I think it's 49.5. I don't believe that State
seems low for a
I know it does
1-point spread.
Yeah, it's 49. And
wow.
I don't know if that is still giving some
it's come down. It was 52.5. State's been bad on offense. I mean, look, their running game has been bad. I mean, 28 carries, 39 yards against Tennessee. The Western Carolina game, throw out the one drive where they had 95 yards. They had 28 carries for 109 yards against a 1AA team, which is less than 4 yards per carry. So, they need to figure some things out. Our friend JC Zemble had a nice clip from Robert and I, who's probably not the favorite person in the NC State fan base right now, but I actually liked what he was saying when he was asked about Grayson McCall. Like, listen, like everything's a problem right now. It's not just great. It's not just crazy. Like, we got to fix some of these other things. So you don't like State to roll in this game?
I do. No, I like the over. I feel like I like the over a little bit better though. I mean, because I'm kind of betting against Dave is not going to be stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think they've really got to go out and like put some points on the damn board. I think they have to go out and be vertical and be aggressive. You're going to have that next week in Clemson. We just kind of went through this thing. Like, I think the world of winning these bigger games, especially on the road, not in Raleigh, like you can't go and try to do it 17-16, 14-13. So I like the over because I if I'm scripting this in my head, I'm thinking something to the effect of 38-20 gets me there. I think State's going to score. I think they've been close. I think they've been closer than a lot of people lead on to in terms of like the offense. I do think that the offense is a lot closer to being okay versus being broken, in my opinion.
I
So
mean, their line needs to improve by like a lot. Now,
what's
I
funny,
said the
like,
same thing after the Duke game last year. I will say that. So
or
they
did
made
or did they
adjustments
just
last
scrap
year.
it, or is this like a point where like Dave looks at everything, he's like, hey guys, we've been running outside zone with Hollywood Smothers. Those plays have actually worked. Is whenever they've been trying to the zone running stuff has worked. The stuff up the middle is not. So like, maybe this is the turning point of like let's stop trying to put what the square peg in a round hole type thing, and like if we're not able to run block the way that we want to run block, even though that's what I want to do, let's go to the things that actually work right now until everything gets a little bit better. And so I'm kind of leaning on that. Again, we haven't had to see Dave figure something out this early in the year,
Yeah.
I guess. And so I'm leaning on that.
Okay. Well, in a sense, though, the Notre Dame game last year, don't forget, kind of like the Tennessee game, other there was a wacky weather and some
Yeah.
other stuff. The Notre Dame game last year was more on the defensive side than the offensive side. So let's get to some of these top 25 games. Now, last week I was wrong. I thought Grayson McCall would throw some touchdown passes. He threw one, and it was to the other team.
Have you seen his two? Have you seen his at least two number this week?
No, I'm not going there because I did not get any of that right last week. So you know what I did get right last week? Like I fucking hammered Texas last week. Like I called that shit.
We were you were right. Yeah. No,
I had like Biff's almanac with that shit last week. So
yeah.
I was pretty happy with that. There was another game that I was all over last week. It was the only other one that I was all over, but the two games I gave on this program, I was right about, other than State, which was a player prop. So we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah. No, you were right. And I told you last week, I took Michigan. Actually, I think I took I leaned Michigan. I like the under. I feel like the under got screwed late. That was a under game, and Michigan scored. I think I told you, it was like I needed to see Texas at like what Alabama and what Georgia do to people, and you felt like it was coming. You thought it was enough, and I was like, okay, maybe they are that that team and or it like that. The slate this week's kind of weird. I guess when game day is going to Columbia for LSU and South Carolina, it's kind of a bizarre, bizarre week, I guess.
I'm trying. Oh, did I give Iowa on here? No. I can't even remember what my other play was last week. That's not great, but I know I was very excited about.
No, yeah, you hit that spot on.
I was very excited about that. So let's get into a game this week that I'm also excited about for similar reasons. And it's funny you mentioned Alabama. Alabama on the road against Wisconsin. Alabama -16. Rosters I did look up. Wisconsin's quarterback is Tyler Van Dyke, who once absolutely urinated on NC State down at Miami. It was probably the only good game of his career, though. This is not NC State's secondary. I don't see any magic happening in this game for Wisconsin. Alabama -16. I'm not the biggest believer in Alabama this year, and they struggled. Don't be fooled by their score from last week, which was 42-16 against South Florida. I'm not the biggest believer in Alabama this year, but they are absolutely going to clobber Wisconsin this week. Wisconsin, how do you get ready for Alabama? Well, they beat Western Michigan 28-14, wanking motion. And then last week they played South Dakota, who they beat 27-13. Wisconsin, cool. You're about to get roadhoused. So lay the points.
I'm such a sucker for a dog at home in an environment like this. I don't like Wisconsin. I like the under 50.5. Is Wisconsin going to score?
I mean, not if they can't score against Western Michigan and South Dakota.
I think we can both be right.
Yes.
35-10, 35-7, 38-7, whatever those type of things is. I'm with you on that. It is interesting with Alabama because, as you mentioned, they did struggle a little bit last week. That game was not – the final score was not indicative of how it went. And Wisconsin, you got to think they've been thinking about this game. I'm sure this game was, 5 years old, 10 years old in the making.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't always have Roll Tide rolling into town, but I would lean on your side. I'm probably going to hit the under.
Okay. Next one, kind of what we just saw in Charlotte. Ole Miss goes to Wake Forest. Ole Miss 22.5 on the road. Their schedule has been an abomination thus far. You have to figure they're going to be excited to actually play a Power 4 opponent. Wake Forest had the absolute worst case scenario last week. They had their guts ripped out and stomped on in a close home loss to Virginia. So I you know how much I respect Dave Clawson. You know how I feel about him, but I get the sense that Wake Forest is in for the Tennessee treatment here. I'm laying the big number this week again, 22.5. Give me Ole Miss.
I want to go to this game. I think
Just
just
the Ole Miss.
the scene is just going to be fascinating. Like somebody mentioned, like the Grove comes to the Grove Stadium or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Under Lane, here's just some. They're going to score some points. Number one, I think this is a take Ole Miss and in their team total every way you can type situation. Like first half, second half. First quarter, team total overs, the full game over. I think they may give up a few points to Wake. Clawson is going to mesh and scheme that
Yeah.
they're going to.
They'll get a few
Like
points.
Wake's going to break one or two, right? I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable to think and such. But last year, I was looking at Ole Miss last year because I think last year was like the first year they really got it going. They beat Georgia Tech 48-23, scored 48. LSU teams that are not Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah.
55 against LSU, 33 Vandy, 38 A&M. They score points. I think they're going to score points.
38 on Penn State, who had statistically the toughest defense in the country.
38 against Penn State. I think this is just too many more better players. The number's a little tricky. There's big numbers. I get worried about backdoor stuff, like late in the game where Ole Miss just doesn't care anymore, type deal. But I'm leaning with you. But again, I like the over in this one. I don't see how Wake Forest hangs at all with them, and yeah, and there's no look ahead. I would be worried if Ole Miss has like Georgia next week. They don't. They play Georgia Southern. So
Ole Miss's schedule has been very interesting, and I know it's going to pick up here. But they've had they were the ones who won the SEC schedule roulette in general.
They only have Georgia. They have Georgia. And it's at home.
Right. All
no
of
Alabama,
their games,
no Texas.
save for the trip to LSU, who my family and Brian Kelly, they really did win the scheduling roulette. And then out of the league, like you mentioned, they have Georgia Southern next week. Their first two games were against Furman and Middle Tennessee. Yeah. Like, what are we doing here?
There's no look ahead spot, and stuff like that matters. If Ole Miss had Alabama next week or LSU, you could be like, are they sleepwalking through this one? Yeah, I think I like Ole Miss in this one.
Speaking of Georgia, it's a tricky number. Georgia, you can price this one at either 23.5 or 24 at Kentucky. Kentucky coming off of a loss.
Yeah.
Georgia still kind of sort of coming off of the Clemson just clobbering annihilation. Everyone and their mother is on Georgia's popsicle for a reason. I kind of like the points in this spot. Everyone telling Kentucky they stink. I do think Mark Stoops is a good coach. I do think Kentucky does have talent. Georgia is now 47-0 since the start of the 21 season against all teams not named Alabama. Mm-hmm. So I'm certainly not predicting a Kentucky win. But if they could score 14 points, if they could score 2 touchdowns in this game, I think they'll cover.
Isn't Kentucky under Mark Stoops just state and Dave Dorn? Like, aren't they the state of the SEC?
Correct.
And so what do we know about the state when they like punch up, especially against like the behemoths?
Well, they have beaten Clemson though in their home stadium. If we're going with the state analogy, they just lost to South Carolina in a game that everyone was excited about. By the way, their number one running back is Demi Sumo Carmbe.
Well, and yes, state has beat Clemson, but they didn't beat Trevor Lawrence Clemson. They didn't beat we're winning the national championship.
I see what you're saying.
Last year, Georgia, they were 4-0. Kentucky was 4-0. They had just beat Kentucky. They had just beat Florida at home. They're ranked. They go to Georgia, lose by 40.
Down there.
Yeah. Okay. So we have to play Georgia, Missouri, Tennessee. That's a tough stretch. Lose all those games. Last year,
their last home game against Georgia was 16-6.
Last year, they lose Alabama by 30 at home.
Okay.
I'm kind of like
don't trust them, is what you're saying.
I'm just like I think there's no reason for me to think that Georgia won't continue to do what they do because they always do it. And it's like kind of to the Texas. Texas is on that level now. Georgia is that level. Georgia is the standard. Alabama's the standard. I got to see it. I basically would say I wouldn't take Kentucky because I've seen Georgia in these spots many times basically be like, hey, what did you say on your podcast earlier this week? F you, I'm Georgia. Like,
Right.
I'm better than you, and I always beat you by a lot, and I'm going to do it again. So,
all right, I got two more still in the SEC. Boston College at Missouri. Boston College now ranked.
Why?
Missouri at home. BC getting 16 in this game.
Missouri. I think it's Missouri.
I am leaning Drink and Missouri in this.
More better players.
Yeah.
More better players.
Plus, we've already seen BC kind of pop a little bit with that Florida State game, so it's not like they're in this thirsty mode. I really do love Bill O'Brien as a coach. Yeah. I think people got confused with Bill O'Brien, the GM with the Houston Texans, who screwed up Bill O'Brien, the coach. But you go back to what he did at Penn State, and he's a really smart coach. I just, like you're saying, I think Drink in year whatever it is now for him, 4. Yeah. Just has more gas and more spots. And 16 is a happy number.
BC, I mean, Florida State has better players than Boston College. Florida State doesn't have an offense.
Yeah.
That's like when you don't have an offense in college football, like sorry, like even if you have really good guys on the defense, it won't matter if your guys can't score. Missouri's thing is they score. They have players out the wazoo. Missouri plays Vandy next week at home. There's not a look ahead spot or anything like that. I like Missouri to roll in this one. Honestly, I think it's a little too early for. I don't even know why Boston College is ranked. I guess
well, they beat Florida State, and you need somebody at the bottom of the.
They have to be ranked. Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, you got to put 25 teams on the card, right?
Yeah. But I like Missouri in this one. To roll.
I think Tommy Castellanos, their quarterback at Boston College, has gotten some people's attention because of the way that he's played, right? Like, never forget, like coaches and quarterbacks are the things that people who vote, that's what they look at. There's not a whole lot of analysis here, like not in a negative way. I'm just saying, like, oh, and then look, they won on the road at Florida State. Whatever we think of Florida. Speaking of Florida State, what do you think? Off the 2 terrible losses. Off of a bye week, open date, they now host Memphis -6. The book is begging you to take Florida State. I mean, begging you.
Yeah. Is Norvell's brother still there? Is this
at Memphis?
At Memphis? Is Norvell's
I
brother
don't know.
There?
Memphis has had this one circled.
Yeah, I like Florida State, and I don't know if I would necessarily bet it. I like them in the sense of you cannot have you can't have the end of last year and the last 2 weeks happen, and everyone is doubting you, and everyone is saying you stink, and everyone is just literally what's the gif of like the African tribal area with the guys are just dancing with the coffin. Like, it's just like it's a celebration of someone's funeral. I mean, that's what's been happening. It's just the how can we just continue to kill Florida State and destroy them? I hate taking anybody on, like pride or like stuff like that, but I got to think that Florida State gets it turned around. I do. I like them to cover the number. It may not be pretty still, right? But if they just got to win by a touchdown, like, okay, I'll take the Noles, but this for me is you don't cover or lose this game, I'm done with you. Like, yeah. I think they may be in quit mode, even though it's like 3 games into the season. They lose this game, they are auto fade the rest of the year.
Well, the book is again begging you at -6. They're saying, "Oh, please take Florida State." To which, I think most people will. But I think sometimes this is one of those trick spots because this really should have been 7, to be perfectly honest with you, or 7.5.
What do you think this was 3 weeks ago? Probably 2 or 3 touchdowns.
10.
I would say like
Memphis is pretty good. Memphis is pretty good.
Yeah, I would say like a
4-year
year,
quarterback.
like a look ahead line. I bet this was probably closer to 2 touchdowns,
Yeah,
honestly.
at
Yes.
home, sure.
Yes. So,
Yeah, I mean, this is wild. So,
it's a
is Florida State starting a new different quarterback? Irish guy? No, we're still on the DJ Uiagalelei show, and then he's got to play for us. Take the under versus Purdue. Our offense is offensive. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about Notre Dame losing at home to Northern Illinois. I did think it was amusing, Josh. We talked a lot this offseason about how NC State's schedule was so easy. Well, there's two significant upsets last week in college football. One by Northern Illinois on NC State's schedule, one by Cal on NC State's schedule. So
Syracuse is actually good, and
and
Georgia Tech
Syracuse,
is like feisty, and yeah, it's not
Syracuse
as
was the third upset. Yeah. So, I'm looking at that going, okay, we'll see what happens. I got one more. I don't know if you have any more. Oregon minus 16 at Oregon State. So the Pac-12 obviously broke up. They're trying to get back together with Boise State and a bunch of bags of nonsense. But these two games remained. Oregon is playing Oregon State this week. Washington is playing Washington State this week. Oregon State at home getting 16 against an Oregon team with Dylan Gabriel that has really kind of struggled to these first 2 weeks.
I like the Beavers.
You like the points?
I do. Home game, all the things that we talk about, like rivalry, home game, the fact that they left you behind.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a big deal. Stuff like that matters. Like, we see it here a lot locally. Like, ECU punches up against State and Carolina all the time. Not even because of the rivalry. It's more than just the actual, like, we're in the same state. It's the, hey, people have told us we don't belong with you. Right? Literally, like, legally, we don't belong with you. Like, we're not allowed to be in the same conference as you, right? Like, there's government things going on, legislation things going on. How big of a slap in the face is it to be like, we're going to a new conference, and and you've always been little brother, and like you're not even little brother anymore, because if you were little brother, we would keep you in the family. You're like, we don't even want you in the family anymore. And so I like the Beavers to cover.
Yeah, Oregon struggled with Idaho in their opener, and then they had a rally like hell to beat
And this is Super Bowl. Like, what else is Oregon? Who else does Oregon State's play this year?
I was getting there.
Oh.
The number slightly concerns me. It was 31-7 last year. Also, when you say check the rosters, fine, have your DJ Uiagalelei jokes. Yeah. But Oregon State got like reamed in the portal. Yeah. They lost their coach. They lost like every player that was functional for them last year. They did pick up a nice win last week against San Diego State. I think this is a first half play.
Yeah.
I've got Oregon State plus 9.5 in the first half in this game. I do worry about the second half of the game getting away from them. But to your point, they should be emotional and ready to play in this football game. So those are a couple of the plays. What do you think? You got anything else? Anything else jump out at you?
Yeah, I had one. I wanted to go down to Greenville.
Oh, I'm with you. I think I'm with you on this one. Let's see.
Are you going to this one? I didn't know if you would make.
I am not going to this one, but I'm going.
The number's 2.5 against. They are app. Or I think right now what I'm looking at. I'm just looking at ESPN, which I know is probably not the best place to look at, but I'm seeing app 2.5, total 60.5.
Mm-hmm.
I like the under a lot. ECU's defense is really good.
Yeah, it's legit good.
It's legit good. It was actually good last year up on the mountain as well, and I think they got a little bit better. So 60.5 kind of, again, I try to game script this thing. That I don't know about ECU's offense. They've made a bunch of turnovers. They had 6 the first week. They had 4 last week. They keep throwing the kid in there, or 4 interceptions. And
I thought he was loosey goosey in the opener against Norfolk State. Who I did watch the first half of that game. Norfolk State had a good corner.
Yeah.
And he just kept slinging that thing at him. And I'm like, that's not the guy you want to pick on.
Yeah.
I did not see a lot of the ODU game. I know their defense was the real reason that they won that football game. That was a big win though for
Yeah.
ECU. I got two thoughts here on this game. Number one, this is a game Mike Houston has to have.
Yeah.
He does not have a win over an in-state team.
Well, and they finally have the moment. Like I think it's the first time it's the first time he's ever won his first game of the year of a season. It's the first time they've been 2-0. That place, Downey Ficklin can get after it if they've got a good product and they've got momentum. They are the most. I'm not saying every fan base doesn't. Nobody really shows up when your team just stinks, but they've been through it. But they actually have momentum. That place is probably going to be pretty close to packed. They've been circling this game.
This is the most interesting game on their schedule. So
it is their biggest. It is their biggest game of the year from just your optics standpoint, and I guess if you ask fans like what matters the most type thing, so they're going to have the environment. I want to take ECU to win so bad. The numbers scared me. What App did last week down in Clemson, I don't even really. That was just it was done in the first quarter.
Yeah, 35
and yes, it was way more Clemson than the other. There was like pick sixes. There was like first play from scrimmage, 80-yard bomb. Like I don't know if App I
think it was the third play, but my other thought was like I love a team like App after getting their ass kicked. Like I do think a coach and I do think Sean Clark's done a really good job there. I think he will have this team ready to play. That's the only thing that gives me pause about taking the side. But I know they lost to Charlotte. Mike Houston lost to Charlotte. Like They're fan. If he loses this game, they're gonna probably have to like win their conference to appease the fan base because this is a precarious position for him after winning 2 games last year. I do think Mike Houston's a good coach. I do. But this is one of those mental health. You need this one. This is one you need. So that's my number one thought. My number two thought is, I typically do like a team like App after getting just roadhouse the way that they were last week at Clemson. So I'm with you. Give me the under. App State's defense is going to adjust from last week, and nothing on the ECU front suggests that they're not going to come out and defend in this.
I don't. I kind of want ECU to win. It's fun when ECU's good, man.
Yeah,
it's fun when they're good, and it would actually for them if you're playing the schedule game. So they play App this week. ECU plays next week.
Is it Liberty already?
At Liberty.
Yeah,
it's funny. Like we talk about inclusion to the playoff and all that. Like if you're a G5 team, you're basically in the playoff when the season starts. But you have to win these like bigger non-conference G5 against other G5 teams, and who knows? I don't. I just no doubt. I know Greenville's going to be a rocking place. And
in particular, Josh, they don't play the 3 best teams in the American Athletic Conference this year. So these 2 games, the App State and the Liberty games, could go a long way for them. I even said this to Mike Houston when he was on the OG. I said, it's crazy to ask a coach who won 2 games last year. Do you feel like your team could be in the playoff this year? Yeah. The truth of the matter is that it's in front of them. It's in front of both of these teams, actually. Even App State, after the way that they had performed last week, obviously it will take some to get over that. But win here, beat Liberty. They play Liberty later this month too. Yeah. So, and now I do think the Sun Belt is actually tougher than the American Athletic, the way that the AAC is constructed right now. But this is a big game.
Yes.
I wrote about that for OG fans this week, that like normally we talk about these games and these teams like, honestly, it wasn't fair to any of them. If you remember ECU with Skip Holtz, well, they beat West Virginia and then they beat Virginia Tech, and then Virginia Tech like turns around and goes 12-0 and beats Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. Well, then they should be voted number 1. And it's like, oh my God, what like impossible stars do you need to align? Yeah. Whereas this year, and then, like you had mentioned, when both of these programs play in-state teams, typically it's State or Carolina, you're going to get their best effort. Well, neither State or Carolina is on each of their schedules this year. So I suspect you will see the best of both of those teams. Definitely the most fascinating game in the state of North Carolina this week.
It'll be the best tailgate of the weekend too.
For sure.
It'll be a blast down there.
Your wife going or no?
Do what?
Is your wife heading out there or no?
She's she likes to front like she cares. She doesn't care enough.
Okay. So. All right.
But I'm excited to watch. I'm actually very intrigued to watch that game, and I'm pulling for the Pirates. And I don't know. might sprinkle a little money, throw them in like a parlay on a money line or something.
There we go. All right, before we get to our legal deeds with DraftKings, you have mortgage needs, you have home loan needs, you have, hey, I've never bought a house before. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Well, give Josh Goodson, RTV Mortgage, give him a call, 252 361 1415. Josh, this election is going to change a few things, right? Either way.
Yeah, it could. I mean, mainly right now, everything's focused on what the Fed's doing. The Fed is going to cut rates next week. It doesn't really affect us, but it is like it affects all the financing markets, I guess.
Sure. Trickle down.
Good way to say it. And so we're seeing the rates, like the rates have began to drop. I think I looked like yesterday, like the average 30-year fix yesterday was the lowest it's been since February of last year. So we are getting back into the fives in some aspects for rates. And honestly, like a lot of people will tell you, fives are a pretty historically low number. Right.
Mhm.
Like we're also jaded by what rates were during COVID. And I think there's a lot of people that expect, like, I'm just going to wait till that happens. And I was like, okay, so you're going to wait for a rate that literally came out of a global pandemic and something our like entire world has never seen. So I don't think if you're waiting for 2 to 3%, I don't know what to tell you, right? Except being very blunt and say I don't think there's any reason to be waiting for something like that. But rates are starting to come down, and I think we're going to kind of continue to see this trend down over the next, even year or so. To be honest with you, so we're in a good spot.
All right, and just as a reminder, if you would like to join our contest, right?
Yes.
You talked to Corey.
Yes.
Our August winner. All right. See, it's that easy.
He hit me up with the quickness. I gave him some options. Gave him some options for some games. I didn't realize the Canes only played like one home game in October. So
yeah,
it was kind of like, hey man, like how does like November work? And he's like, what? Free tickets are free tickets, right?
Yeah.
So.
Perfect. So see, it's that easy. Corey won August. Congratulations to him.
I need to tell some of these guys. I saw you put the scoreboard up 8-2.
Yeah, let's go. Let's bring it back here. Let's bring it back here because Chillum 8-2, Pirates are 8-2, AM Reed
7-3. I mean,
and Mike Rad 7-3. So looks like we had 32 entries last week, which is nice. Now again, remember, I got the spreadsheet. Please keep entering because we're going to keep it all together for September. We'll give away those tickets like Corey found out. You just text Josh. He'll give you some options for some dates for those Canes tickets. Yeah. Cannot be any easier than it is.
And who's in last? I do want to shout the guy that's in last.
1-9.
Let me tell you, it is just as hard to go 1-9 as it is 8-2.
Yes.
That won't bring any solace.
Right.
But it is just maybe even harder to go one. It's probably harder to go 1-9 than go 8-2.
And again, there's the link. I'll put that in the YouTube there, but it's RZDS2ZJ. That's the one that's going to get you. If you already are in the DraftKings app, you just punch that code in to join, and you'll also see the link below. So appreciate you guys for checking us out this morning. We'll be back again next week right here on the OG Gambling Syndicate. Thanks, Josh.